when I wanted to play on the basketball team, the boys weren't too thrilled. Some were mad because I am a girl and not as good as most of them. Others felt that if a girl could play on a boys' team, they should be allowed to play on the girls' softball team. The rest were just mad because their friends were mad. I tried hard not to let everyone's resentment affect my playing, but it was still difficult and intimidating playing such a rough sport with all boys who are bigger, stronger, and more aggressive than I am. This was an advantage because when town basketball started, I was able to get on a very good team. I learned moves like setting picks and boxing out to get a rebound. Boxing out enables the defensive team to get the ball after a shot has been taken. First, you have to keep your body on your opponent's body to feel what he is doing and anticipate his next move. If the ball comes down near you, you have to jump as high as you possibly can while getting crushed and pushed from every possible angle and try to grab the ball. If you are successful, you pass the ball off to the guard and then get open and ready to do the same thing down on the other end of the court. Encouragement to learn new moves and improve on old ones not only came from my teammates, but from our coach, Mr. Smalley. I could really relate to Mr. Smalley because, like me, he is left-handed. He is also one of the shortest people on the team. I would especially like to thank him for putting up with all of my complaints about the boys' refusal to pass to me, even when I was open. From all the times I've been fouled and knocked down, I have many painful bruises and scars, but I have more happy memories. I became a better basketball player and a much better friend. I also learned that boys were good for things other than dating. They were there to be my friends. Thanks, guys.
Seventh grade was a very hard year for me. We had homework ranging from 2 to 4 hours a night, sometimes even more if we had reports or papers to write, and a large number of tests and quizzes a week. Then it was hard to enjoy any subject. Language arts and social studies were interesting, but were loading me with tests and quizzes. Tanakh and Torah She'Ba'al Peh were difficult for me, and Hebrew was, well, it was Hebrew. But through all this drudgery, there was always math. In the past, before 7th grade, I had despised math. I didn't want to learn a thing that was being taught. But this 7th grade math class was different than others. It was taught by Mrs. Ostrander, who made me want to learn math. The first day I came into math class, I was a little skeptical. The year before, in 6th grade, my poor performance placed me in the C class in 7th grade. This was the lower math class. I didn't want to be placed in this class as a matter of my self-image, but I soon grew to like it. From the beginning, Mrs. Ostrander seemed like a good teacher. She would make math teams within the class, and the winning team would receive candy bars. As the year progressed, I grew to like math even more. As I got to know Mrs. Ostrander, I saw that she could be a very interesting teacher. She had great methods for making us learn, such as using flashcards. At one point during the year, when we were learning about the area of cubes, Mrs. Ostrander had each of us make cubes out of paper. That method helped the students a lot with learning about area. If a student didn't understand something, Mrs. Ostrander always made sure that they learned it. She also hardly gave anyone in the class silent X. Definitely a good characteristic for any teacher. She had other methods for keeping our class under control. At the end of the year, I found that I had learned an incredible amount of math, definitely all due to Mrs. Ostrander's teaching.
The greatest gift that I have acquired from Schechter is an appreciation and understanding of tefillah. It all started in kindergarten with learning the Oseh Shalom and Shema. I know that with these words, I can fit into any Jewish community around the world. Tefillah is not only using words and melody to worship God. It helps me organize my feelings. Sometimes it is not easy for me to find a way to express what I am feeling. But when I sing the Tefillah from my heart, that song lightens my problems and I feel closer to God. Asalecha Rav, Kanelecha Chaver, Vedan Kol Adam Bechaf Zachut. Make a teacher for yourself, acquire yourself a friend, and give everyone the benefit of the doubt. When we pray, we are asking for judgment from ourselves and from God. We can only expect fair judgment if we too are fair judges. If we give everyone the benefit of the doubt, then so will Hashem Elokeinu. In the 8th grade, the lessons of previous years came together as I discovered the joy of prayer. That is something that only Schechter could encourage me to do. As Mar Weisner always says, only through keva can come kavana. And thanks to Schechter, which physically taught me the keva, I have found the kavana. That was the greatest lesson and the best graduation gift that I can take away with me. עכשיו שאני עומדת לפני תקופה חדשה בחיי, אינני יכולה לשכוח את האנשים שעזרו לי לבנות את עצמי. חבריי לכיתה שגדלו לצידי יקרים לי מאוד, ואני לעולם לא אשכח את חילופי המילים שהיו בינינו, את המשחקים, את ההרגשות ואת האחדות המשותפת. אני רוצה להודות למורים על הידע שהעניקו לי, ולחברים שעזרו לי לבנות את עצמי. ולמורות שאשכח חלק מהדברים שלמדתי, תמיד יישארו בתוכי החייבות והניסיון החיים שרכשתי מחבריי בשכטר.
At Schechter, says the mission statement, Hebrew is considered to be an essential tool. I spent the last 2 days of the summer before I entered Schechter, lying on my bed in the basement, feeling utterly frustrated, distraught, and mad, kicking the wall, shaking the house, and yelling that no matter how my parents tortured or rewarded me, they couldn't force me to learn Hebrew. אחרי 10 חודשים, אמרתי את משפטי הראשון בעברית בכיתה א' של אורה. The next year, I would be tortured again. For some reason, my teacher actually thought that everyone wanted to learn Hebrew. Boy, was she in for a surprise. Other people learned all year, but anything I learned was accidental through osmosis. Next year, 3rd grade, enter Rachel. She wasn't only my teacher, she was also my friend. That year, I wasn't just taught Hebrew, I actually learned it. Rachel encouraged me to speak Hebrew, not just to write in workbooks. I spent the whole year speaking Hebrew, and looking back, it was probably a good thing too, because the year after would find me in Beit Sefer Ephrata in Jerusalem. Now, Hebrew wasn't torture. It was a liberating means of communication. After 3 months of frustration, abuse, and friendship with only the 4 American kids in my class, I could finally speak fluently in Hebrew, and I even knew some words in Arabic, although they aren't exactly appropriate for graduation. By the time I came back to Schechter, I realized that Hebrew was a language, and not an adult conspiracy against me or a practical joke. Unfortunately, by the end of 5th grade, in which I can't remember anything in Hebrew except reviewing the Binyanim, which I still don't know, I had managed to forget more than half of the Hebrew than I once knew. Next came the elite Eitan group, from which I was banished regularly. The antidote for that fruitless year was 2 years with Ruti in Ivrit Yoter Tova, and I am proud to say that I've almost re-achieved 5th grade Hebrew. Now, after such a hectic ride on the Learning Hebrew roller coaster, I am determined to continue studying Hebrew, and eventually to know more than I knew before.
In 5th grade, Mrs. Bonnie Weiss sat us down in the corner of the room on the brown carpet in a circle. It was at the end of the year, and we were talking about going on to 6th grade when Mrs. Weiss brought out a tape recorder and said simply, "This is my favorite song. It's called The Circle Game." And then she pressed play. The song is about a boy growing up into a man with his fears and dreams. In the chorus, it talks about life being like a carousel, on which each turn symbolizes a circle of life. I sat intently listening, and when the song was over, I was left totally confused. What was the song about? Now that I'm graduating, I understand the full meaning of the circles in the song. They symbolize the experiences we have lived through, or in other words, the circles of life. This graduation is the end of one of the most important circles of my life, the end of my Schechter experience. This night, these moments symbolize the breaking up and scattering of each person on this bima, the people with whom I have shared my deepest secret, my happiest laugh, and my hardest day. And the seasons, they go round and round. From the first day of school in the fall, to celebrating Hanukkah in the winter, to the Yom HaShoah service in the spring, and finally, graduation. Words like "when you're older must appease him," and promises of someday make his dreams. We have all dreamt of this night throughout our years at Schechter, and finally, we are here. It is time to move on, to start a new circle that we will cherish just like this one.
I have chosen to speak in Hebrew about a teacher that I will never forget. Rachel Orbach הייתה זו שגרמה לי לאהוב את השפה העברית. אני זוכר שכבר ביום השני של כיתה ג' כאשר הלכנו במסדרון בית הספר, רחל אמרה שאסור לנו לדבר. אני לא שמעתי את דבריה ודיברתי. היא כעסה אליי ואמרה לי לשבת בפינה. חזרתי הביתה עצוב ובכיתי, ובאותו ערב רחל התקשרה וביקשה סליחה. מאז אינני יכול לשכוח אותה ואת יחסה אליי. Having spent 9 years at Schechter, I feel that my classmates and teachers have become part of my extended family. Some of the qualities I have with my immediate family, trust, admiration, and support, I have come to share with my Schechter friends and teachers. I feel this 8th grade class exemplifies the type of class that Schechter can look at as a model class. The most significant impact upon me was realizing that I could change the course of events of our lives at Schechter. Some of us weren't satisfied with a traditional tefillot, so Sam, Dove, and Ellie worked very hard to provide an 8th grade minyan for those of us who wanted more. I was able to bring about change with Nir and Avi to make a baseball team, which Schechter never had, and which we wanted. My love of Judaism has been increased while at Schechter, and I hope this feeling has overflowed to influence others in the class. I know I will look back with fondness at my Schechter years.
The last line of Chapter 2, Mishnah 6 of Pirkei Avot states, "Uv'makom she'en anashim hishtadel lihiyot ish." And in a place where there are no men, strive to be a man. The commentaries say that to be a man is to be your own individual man. A man that does not conform when it is not necessarily wise, even if it is easier. A popular way of conforming among Jews today is to give up their practice and belief in Judaism. The program at Schechter fights against this very well. The school sets a good foundation for learning Tanakh, Talmud, Hebrew, and about Jews in general. But most importantly, the teachers allow us to question and doubt their ideas. Students at Schechter have been taught that it is all right to go against the flow. Throughout my years at Schechter, I cannot think of a specific example because many times each day, a student would disagree or argue with everyone else, and no one would hold it against him. In fact, if he had a decent point, they would admire him for standing up for it. When we leave Schechter after this ceremony, we will be able to resist conformity and assimilation. We will be able to use our knowledge of Judaism and our experience and comfort in fighting against the odds for what we believe in.
In a matter of minutes, each of us will receive the diploma that will separate our past years here from the rest of our lives. So, in our last moments as a class of Schechterites, before we move forward, it's time to look back. This ceremony is our final Schechter production, and I keep remembering our first. In Rena Cohen's first grade class, we sang Eretz Yisrael Shali for our parents at the Siddur party. I remembered being very nervous about performing in public. Would they like me? Everyone will get mad if I mess up. I had thousands of butterflies in my stomach. By third grade, we'd progressed to actual dialogue, but I regret to say that my only clear memory of the Chumash party play is carrying a milk jug on stage and falling down in the middle of Shavta Mayim. But on to the Meleva Malka. Moshe Rudin חיבר את ההצגה, השתמש בסיפורי שבת, והוסיף דמויות אחרות כמו ה-Three Stooges. אני הייתי הרבי של קבוצת חסידים מצחיקים. In Free to Be a Family, in 5th grade, along with 2 good friends, I dressed like a candy striper and sang 2 songs about chocolate and good and bad kids. We had no time for costume changes, so we ran out in our socks and forgot one of the verses. That play was directed by Ellen Garfield, who coached us through most of our remaining productions, including this graduation ceremony. This year, our last at Schechter brought with it a lot of performances, including Spanish skits and the grapefruit disaster, thanks to 8B. The Yom HaShoah service was moving, and it really brought us together as a class, because together we helped other people remember the Holocaust. I could barely feel the pain in my feet, and as we sang the words of Hannah Senesh, I wasn't the only one crying. But the grand finale was Les Miserables, or Aluvei HaChaim. Rehearsals started late, and the show was early, but we pulled off a play that moved everyone who saw it, even if the only phrase they understood was Vive la France. When I walked on stage, carrying posters and mugs for Red and Black, I felt those same butterflies that I felt in 1st grade when we sang Eretz Yisrael Shali. But this time I knew that no matter how many lines I botched or how many times my voice cracked, the whole cast, as well as the audience, was supporting me as I was supporting them. So here we are, on stage together for the last time. There will be more plays for me, but no cast will match up to this one.
There's a tradition for the middle school director to give a charge at this time, some words of inspiration to the graduating class. As I'm sure this graduating class knows, I've been poring over these thoughts and these comments for quite a while. As a means of presenting this charge, I'd like you to think about the concept of hero, as hero is used in our Western literary tradition. The hero is something of the individual who's on a quest for some sort of greater, just goal that will add to the greater good of the community. He embodies or she embodies a noble cause. Now, in the world in which we live, the concept of the hero has gone into something of disrepute. If you will, it's been replaced by the victim as heroic, by the anti-hero. Also, that which is glorious has been made mundane, and that which is mundane has been glorified beyond all proportion. Nonetheless, I want you to think about taking on the idea of a noble cause in your life, somewhere in which you can embrace the idea of the heroic. I want you yourselves to view yourselves, if you can, as heroes on some great quest. As it so happens, I believe that continuing our tradition, bettering our people, breathing life into the words of our texts, helping to find its place in the modern world is a heroic quest. I find the sacrifices made by your families to provide you with a strong Jewish background, in many cases a stronger background than they themselves had, I find that to be heroic. I would ask you to consider that this is something of a quest, to become adult Jews in the community, to make contributions in each your own way is in its own way quite heroic. To contribute, if you can.
I share Mr. Zarkessler's comments about your wonderful remarks and all your attention to friendship and to the bonds that bind you so much, and also to his references to you as future leaders, because I certainly believe that, and we certainly have ample testimony to that, as we can see from our graduates who are here, who gathered earlier, and who gather at various times during the year, are the leaders in their various communities. Before offering some brief words of Torah, I want to acknowledge our hosts here this evening. We are very, very privileged and honored and fortunate to be able to use this beautiful sanctuary here at Mishkan Tefillah, and to make special recognition of the fact that both Rabbi Menatoff and Cantor Finkelstein are here with us this evening, and we thank you so much for your hospitality this evening. I plan to say a few words about the Parsha, first in Hebrew and then to conclude in English. Dibarti etmol ala hashva'a bein haTorah v'hapara haduma. Ha'erev ani ratzeh ledaleg ala para kedei ledaber al Moshe keben adam. B'parsha anachnu korim b'perek kaf b'sefer Bamidbar ala tlunot shel ha'am she'ein lehem mayim b'midbar. Hashem poneh leMoshe ve'Aaron, v'hu mitzaveh otam lakachat mateh v'lageshet lasela uledaber el hasela, umayim yetz'u. Moshe lo ma'amin, uv'chein hu oseh shnei dvarim achirim. Kodem hu medaber ba'ofen lo yafeh livnei Yisrael, v'az hu makeh et hasela pa'amayim, bimkom ledaber el hasela. Uviglal ha'maasim ha'ela, Hashem lo ma'afsher lo likanes le'eretz Canaan. Anachnu ro'im et Moshe lo. Aryeh Chaim Gedalia Stickler.
Alan Chad Stickler.
Zerach Yehuda Maryland.
Ethan Michael Merlin.
Avraham Michael Yaar.
Abraham Michael Yaar.
Akiva Fox.
Akiva Fox.
Your name works both ways. It's good. Aaron Dov Be'er Goldstein.
Aaron Barnett Goldstein.
Ariel Ra'anan Zomer.
Ariel Ra'anan Zomer.
Dalia Sarah Ruch.
Dalia Sarah Ruch.
Shimon Raisin.
Simon Raisin.
Dov Eitan Hazelcorn.
Dov Eitan Hazelcorn.
Nathanael Ezra Link.
Nathaniel Ezra Link.
Fredo Lobovich.
Ellie Rosenfeld Lobovitz.
Batsheva Berman.
Kimberly Berman.
Rachel Nechama Herzig Marks.
Rachel Herzig Marks.
Daniel Ari Birnbaum.
Daniel Ari Birnbaum.
Menasha Jabawi.
Nathaniel Jabawi.
Alma Ehrlich.
Alma Ehrlich.
Shoshana Leah Lasker.
Stephanie Lasker.
Daniel Yaakov.
Daniel Jacob.
Daphna Hoffman.
Daphne Hoffman.
Bluma Falchuk.
Jennifer Falchuk.
Tal Dibner.
Tal Dibner.
Shmuel Yaakov Wald.
Samuel Joseph Wall.
Yehudit Shapiro.
Judith Ruth Shapiro.
Mealy Glenn.
Mealy Glenn.